Grasses battle to win. Grasses appear on the field. You might have assumed that grass has always been a part of the landscape, but grasses seem to have appeared during the Cretaceous period, which is a short time ago on a geologic scale. The Cretaceous trees dominated the vegetation, with their shade limiting other plant growth. But on eroded hillsides, grasses were able to cover the bare ground faster than trees. With evolution causing random changes to emphasize successful improvements to life on Earth, much of interest has appeared. Imagine you're walking through a landscape where the soil has been eroded. This might be due to various factors like water running over the land, wind blowing away the topsoil, or a landslide. Now, these erosion surfaces are kind of like blank canvases in nature. They're areas where the soil is worn down, often lacking in nutrients, and most importantly, they're missing the usual vegetation cover, especially larger plants and trees. Here's where the grasses come into play. Think of grasses as these hardy, adventurous types. They're not picky about where they grow, and they can often make do with less than ideal soil conditions. So, when they find these erosion surfaces, it's an opportunity for them to move in without much competition. There are no big trees hogging all the sunlight or deep-rooted plants taking all the water and nutrients. Grasses have a few tricks that make them particularly good at colonizing these areas. For one, they grow from their base, not their tips, so even if the top part gets damaged or eaten, they can keep growing. They also have a network of roots that helps to stabilize the soil, preventing further erosion. This root system can also help them access water and nutrients in these tough environments. What's really clever about grasses is that by moving into these erosion surfaces, they start a sort of restoration process. Over time, as they grow and die, they add organic matter back into the soil, improving its quality. This can eventually make the area more hospitable for other plants too. But by then, the grasses have already established themselves as the dominant players. So, in a way, grasses are like nature's opportunists, taking advantage of these barren, eroded areas to spread and dominate, setting the stage for a whole grassland ecosystem to develop. It's a neat example of how something as simple as grass can play a significant role in shaping the landscape. Grass gets help from animals. Imagine you're a tiny grass blade, barely visible amidst a towering forest. The Cretaceous trees, with their massive trunks and leafy canopies, block out most of the sunlight, making it tough for you to thrive. But you've got a secret weapon: your ability to form alliances. First, you cozy up to the grazing animals. They love to munch on your nutritious leaves, and in doing so, they help you spread your seeds far and wide. These animals are on the lookout for their next meal, and more often than not, they find it in the grasses. This relationship might seem a bit one-sided at first glance, with the animals getting all the benefits, but it's actually a mutual partnership. Grasses, being the resilient characters they are, have adapted to not only tolerate but actually benefit from being grazed. It's a bit like getting a haircut. When grazing animals munch on the tops of grass, they're essentially pruning the grass. This pruning stimulates new growth, keeping the grasses young and vigorous. Grazing animals also play a crucial role in the grassland's health through their movement and digestion. As these animals graze, they move around, which helps to prevent any one area from being overgrazed. Their hooves churn up the soil a bit too, which can help in seed dispersal and even create small pockets in the soil for seeds to germinate. Also, small trees cannot survive being trampled. When these animals digest the grass, they're breaking it down and then redistributing it as manure. This manure is rich in nutrients, and when it's spread across the grassland, it acts like a natural fertilizer, helping to maintain the health and fertility of the soil. In this way, grazing animals and grasses have developed a sort of alliance. The grasses provide a reliable food source for the animals, and in return, the animals help in maintaining the health and spread of the grasses. It's a classic example of a symbiotic relationship where both parties benefit and help each other thrive. So, when you see a herd of grazing animals on a grassland, it's not just a simple case of animals eating plants. It's a complex interaction that's vital for the health and sustainability of the grassland ecosystem. The grasses and the grazers need each other, and together, they create a dynamic, living landscape. Grasses use fire. Grasses also teamed up with fire, the forest's dreaded enemy. Grasses and trees are each trying to dominate the landscape. The grasses have a clever strategy up their sleeve to maintain their territory: fire. Grasses are amazingly adapted to survive and even thrive after fires. They grow from their base, close to the ground. So, when a fire sweeps through, it burns the tops of the grasses but typically doesn't damage the growth points near the soil. After the fire, these grasses can quickly regrow, often more vigorously than before because the fire has cleared away dead plant material and may even have released nutrients into the soil. Now, let's talk about trees. Trees are more vulnerable to fire. Their vital growth areas, like the trunk and branches, are exposed. When a fire hits a forest, it can severely damage or kill many of the trees, which take much longer to recover, if they recover at all. This creates an opportunity for grasses to expand their territory into areas where the trees have been weakened or eliminated. But here's the twist. Grasses not only survive fires, they can actually help start them. In many grasslands, especially those that are well managed or in natural settings, the buildup of dry grass can act as perfect kindling for a fire. Lightning strikes or human activities can easily ignite this dry material, leading to a fire that sweeps across the landscape. Fire also plays a role in preventing trees from moving into grasslands. In areas without regular fires, trees can start to grow in grasslands, gradually turning them into forests or woodlands. By burning periodically, fires help to keep these areas as open grasslands, which is exactly what the grasses want. Eventually, the grasses covered vast areas, such as North America's Great Plains, which burn every few years, and European sailors knew they were approaching the continent when they smelled smoke. So, in this ecological game, fire is like a tool the grasses use to keep their competitive edge over trees. It's a natural cycle in many ecosystems, where fire helps to maintain the balance between different types of vegetation, ensuring that grasslands remain grasslands, providing a habitat for a wide range of wildlife, and supporting the grazing animals that rely on them. Fire, in the context of grasslands, is about renewal and maintaining a balance in the ecosystem. It's a fascinating example of how different elements in nature interact and depend on each other, often in ways we might not initially expect. With your grazing allies and fiery accomplice, you start to gain ground on the trees. You spread like wildfire, filling the gaps left by their charred remains. But as your numbers grow, you face a new challenge: overgrazing. Hazardous herbivore herds. Those same grazing animals that helped you expand can now pose a threat. They might munch on you so much that you can't keep up with your growth. A while back, grasses developed a clever trick. They started incorporating silica, a common mineral found in sand and quartz, into their tissues. Now, why would they do that? It's all about protection. Silica makes the grass blades tougher and more abrasive. Think of it as grass putting on a suit of armor. This armor is a defense mechanism against herbivores, those animals that love to munch on plants. Now, enter the herbivores, like horses and cows. These guys love eating grass, but suddenly they found their favorite meal had turned into a bit of a dental nightmare. Imagine trying to chew on something as tough as sandpaper. This is where evolution kicks in. Over time, herbivores adapted to this change in their diet. They developed stronger, more wear-resistant teeth. You can think of this as herbivores upgrading their tools to handle tougher materials. So, it's a back-and-forth battle. Grasses become tougher to eat, and in response, herbivores evolve better ways to eat them. This interaction is a classic example of coevolution, where two or more species influence each other's evolutionary path. It's like a race where both the grasses and the herbivores keep changing the rules, and both have to keep adapting to keep up. In summary, grasses evolved to incorporate silica for protection, and herbivores evolved tougher teeth to handle this change. It's nature's way of maintaining balance, with each side continually adapting to the other's moves. Isn't evolution fascinating? Summary. So, in this grand random strategy of nature, grasses use erosion, grazing animals, fire, and even the soil itself to spread and thrive, all while keeping their main competitors, the trees, in check.